An alternate history where the Knights of the Round Table never disbanded and continued to protect the rest of the world from the horrors that wait in the shadows. Where the knights swear allegiance to queen and country and the protection of man, regardless of the consequences. Immortalized in history through the passing of title through mentor to protege. That's right, we're talking about the Kingsmen. Oh, wait, no, that's not right. We're going to be talking about The Order, 1886. You might remember The Order as that game you played once or heard about or seen briefly in a PlayStation trailer. In my opinion, this game is heavily slept on. This game received a lot of criticism at the time for being basically a Gears of War clone.
That's my tomatoes, now this!
Being too short, being basically a movie, all at a $60 price point, just so you can run around 1880s London as a red-pilled British man. Stop resisting! Let me tackle these criticisms right off the bat. People calling it Gears of War at the time basically just meant that it was a cover shooter, which it absolutely is, but we didn't have a lot of those at the time, so I think people just decided to chop it up to being basically a Gears of War clone, because that was the game that was really popular at the time. Is that a bad thing? No, cover shooters can be fun if you're into that. And honestly, we don't really have a lot of great ones right now, so having a unique IP to kind of revitalize the genre would be great. Honestly, this one's pretty fair. I'm super fond of this game, but in total it's like an 8-hour game. Not that every game has to be a 170-hour open world game with 3,500 side quests and 99 romance options, including your dog, which is a trope that has gotten a bit tired.
And he gets pretty lonely too.
But I'd like to see a longer version of this game because this is somewhat warranted. But once again, that doesn't make it a bad thing. Mainly because the story is extremely unique with extremely likable characters, which is all backed up by great writing, pacing, and acting. In fact, the story is so good that the Kingsmen stole it.
I suppose asking to borrow a cup of sugar is a step too far.
Well, more specifically, they stole specific story beats and key points from The Order 1886. Spoilers for both The Order 1886 and the Kingsman series. Such as the Knights of the Round Table, alt-history theme, the inclusion of unique and fun gadgets and weapons made by a man of significance in history. The major twist in the plot that the people at the head of the Round Table are actually traitors and are working for the bad guy, / are the bad guy. The main character falling from grace, while the female side character / love interest takes the mantle for a system she doesn't realize is corrupt. The pampered rich kid who was a shoo-in for being a knight turns out to be a traitor. The death of the protagonist's mentor leading the protagonist to rise up and not allow the antagonist to win regardless of their status as a knight. Major difference is that due to bad reception, the Order didn't get the opportunity to finish their story properly, so the Kingsmen had to go ahead and make up their own ending.
Oh my word.
Now I know what you're thinking. Some of you cyber sleuths out there may go, wait a minute, I watch movies with quippy British protagonists. I play games with quippy British protagonists. I'm a quippy British protagonist. And I know that the first Kingsman film came out on December 15th, 2014. And with that date in mind, The Order didn't come out until February 20th, 2015. So what are you talking about, Shake? Were you dropped on your head as a baby? Yes. My sister placed me on a counter and I fell off and broke my nose. Regardless of that, if we go back further, we'll see that the Kingsmen didn't even start filming until October 6, 2013, and didn't release a trailer until May 21st, 2014. Whereas The Order was in development since 2010, according to the CEO of Ready at Dawn, and had its first trailer premiere at E3 2013 on June 11th. So though to the average person it may seem that the Kingsmen came up with this idea first, it actually turns out it was The Order. Who's the detective now? I'm like McGruff the crime dog or Smokey the bear. Hold on, am I getting Berenstein Baird right now? I'm certain it was Smokey the bear and not Smokey Bear. And what the hell is this? They replaced Smokey the bear with Ember the fire smart fox? Look at this. This should not be allowed near kids. We need to stop letting furries make their way into public office. This thing looks like a Digimon. I need a drink. Wow, that was really good. Oh, that was really good. Now, this is no shade on Kingsman. I love the series, for the most part. When I see the success of the Kingsman series, all I can ever think about is how the Order 1886 has been left in the past, with most people knowing little about it and it not getting what I believe is the attention that it deserves, mainly due to its story. I believe that the story for this game is on Naughty Dog level of writing. Now I'm going to try to go over the story for the Order 1886, and though it is a short game, this may take a little bit. So if you already know the story, or if you don't want to listen to me yap about it, go ahead and skip to this time here. The story opens the 20th of November, with our protagonist in a prison cell, being enhanced interrogated by a couple of redcoats. Literal limey redcoats with Cockney accents giving him this yearly bath in our Queen's year of 1886.
Time for your morning bath.
After his bath, he gives him a proper British thank you and goes on his merry way.
Are you little shit?
As he makes his escape, he finds an empty revolver that he then uses to hold someone hostage for a short while before having to kill him.
Whoa, fellas, whoa!
His brief moment of reprise is taken away by a gunshot from what seems to be a familiar face.
Give yourself up, monsieur. My next shot will not be a warning.
He rushes outside and is met cornered by his former brotherhood, pleading that he turn himself in, before he takes a dive off the building and into the sea.
Don't do this!
You have betrayed our order! No one may escape the penalty! You forget, Lord Chancellor. I'm as good as dead already.
Galahad!
Galahad, come in.
Cut to October 12th. Galahad is on a mission with Izzy, who looks like the girl from the Chronicles of Narnia. After helping a police officer fight off a man in a bathrobe, they dispatch several threats and then run into Lafayette. Stop resisting! A new protege with a penchant for women.
Lafayette. Ah, monsieur. This lady requires my attention.
Marquis, your attention is required elsewhere.
Most fetching, was she not?
I hadn't noticed.
That is because you are not a Frenchman.
No, it's because I'm gay.
I am a...
Briefly after scolding Lafayette, the most French man I've ever seen, Galahad sees Sir Percival off in the distance speaking with a very not suspicious individual in a cloak. The group splits off into groups of two, Izzy and Lafayette in one group and Galahad in the other, which seems fair considering Galahad looks like the kind of guy to mix his protein powder with sand, not milk. Not long after, we find our main character searching an evacuated series of tunnels, pursuing anyone who might have gotten away, and this is when we are introduced to half-breeds, or lycans, humans with the capability of transforming into werewolf-like creatures. After killing most of the lycan threat, one gets away and Galahad pursues it through the busy streets of Whitechapel, eventually killing it with a railgun.
Out of the way!
Everyone all right?
Yes.
Percival, we've neutralized the threat on our side.
Good. I managed to capture one of the half-breeds. Rendezvous back at Regent.
Acknowledge. Let's go.
Cut to Sir Percival. He is speaking with the Commissioner, who gives us more context on the current state of events, telling us that between the rebellion, Jack the Ripper, and the slaughter we just witnessed, it seems that all of these events are probably related as they are all taking place in Whitechapel.
And then this. Strange, don't you think, that Whitechapel has become the epicenter of our recent conundrums? We must examine every clue now, you see?
We meet in council 2 days hence. If you would do us the honor of presenting your findings.
You can expect me at Westminster.
The group then agrees that this information should be presented to the council. The 14th of October. The Council of Knights come together being led by the Lord Chancellor, who seem to challenge the ethics of our main protagonist, arguing that they should not get involved in Whitechapel, as it is a matter for the civil authorities, i.e., not my job, not my problem. Then some dudes in fancy wigs say maybe he has a point, and put it to a vote, which the Chancellor does, and the Council votes that they should not get involved, much to the disappointment of Percival and Galahad.
What says the order of Her Majesty's Royal Knights in the matter of Whitechapel? Aye or nay?
Nay!
The nays have it. This council is dismissed.
Our order grows too prudent, Grayson. We wither away from this inaction.
Percival then goes to Sir Lucan, the Knight Commander, son of the Lord Chancellor and sister to Izzy, to try and convince him to change his father's mind. To which he tells him, I can't do that, but if you want to go ahead and pursue this, do it, but don't get caught or else it's your ass, not mine.
Whitechapel remains off limits. That is officially.
Now that the group has been not given permission to go ahead with their investigation, they do not begin to prepare, which introduces us to my boy Nikola Tesla.
Permit me to oversee a few of my new experiments. In the meanwhile, take a look around, play with whatever strikes your fancy, but do be careful.
The 15th of October. Our group is entering the district of Whitechapel, and in this discussion, Percival provides a piece of advice to his compatriots.
Monsieur.
You really believe the rebels are collaborating with the half-breeds?
The Lord Chancellor is convinced of it. I have my doubts.
Do you trust anyone, mon général?
Never accept, always question. It's a motto that's seen me through the centuries.
A piece of advice that will serve well as we go through this story. After this, they split off into two groups, Percival and Izzy in one, and Galahad and Lafayette in the other. On their way, the two decide to do one of the worst sneak attacks I have ever seen in any form of media.
Oi!
There is so much wrong with this scene. First off, the guy already had his back turned. Lafayette already had to run up. He might as well have just snuck up on him. Speaking of which, when the guy turns around, you can clearly see Lafayette's head poking out. Also, not really sure why Galahad threw an apple at the guy and then told the store clerk to be quiet, and considering it's not like they sneak in. They just choke a guy out and then casually make their way to a rally where they are immediately spotted. Which, of course they are. They are in full uniform on a covert mission.
Alice on a fat arse, drinking East India tea, and living off the sweat of other people's brows. Your sweat. Your blood!
So after their brilliant attempt at stealth, they begin to make an escape, and Galahad white knights all over the place when he finds a man beating a woman, who goes on to tell Galahad that there has been another Ripper murder the night before.
It's all right. There's no need to be afraid.
How could I have known he was the Ripper? He was just another bloke.
He killed another one last night.
Galahad and Laffy Taffy press on and find themselves in a brothel where they are greeted with another carbon copy British boy that hits them with a fulfilling another stereotype.
There's no weapons allowed in the establishment. You want to stay, you leave it here.
Bien sûr, monsieur. As a matter of fact, we were just looking for the code closet.
Give it here. And have fun, governor.
At ease, monsieur.
They are quickly being tailed by the people that noticed them earlier, and Lafayette quickly comes up with a plan of escape by paying for the services of two women and then quickly ditching them into a separate room.
This way, love.
Get in here.
Oi! Here! What are you up to?
You're in the wrong room.
Where's the little frog gone?
He's in there!
With his friend.
Oi! Get out of there!
Unfortunately, that room is already being occupied, and the man occupying it goes for his gun for no reason other than him not getting his nut.
You want some of this? Hey, you want some? Go for it. Very nice.
That's some real monkey brain right there. That dude's post-nut clarity would have been insane. Fortunately for everyone, they knock him out and escape out the window. At this point, several firefights with the rebels break out as they make their way forward. And after some expert marksmanship, the rebels are quickly dispatched. Galahad and Lafayette make their way to a rooftop and try to radio to Percival and Izzy, but are unsuccessful due to interference. Luckily, they are still able to radio for air support via monocular with a built-in Morse code apparatus. Oh hey look, Little Big Planet! The boys get into another tussle and Galahad gets saved by the fart gun. Percival goes on to inform Galahad and Lafayette of his findings. The rebels have access to an armory worthy of a sizable army. Not only that, but these weapons are ones made specifically for the Order, and among them they find a Mark 86 thermite rifle, a weapon that hasn't even seen distribution yet.
What did you find?
Essex M86 thermite rifle.
As this revelation comes to light, the sound of gunfire is heard coming from outside, and Galahad takes it upon himself to hold the Mark 86 as evidence. He then proceeds to use that evidence against the rebel force.
There! On the roof!
I see them.
During which, a police officer is shot and fatally wounded, as well as Percival taking a bullet to the side of his neck. Fortunately for Percival, he is a Knight of the Order and immediately takes a drink from his flask, which contains black water from the Holy Grail, which quickly heals his wounds. The officer is not so lucky.
Can we move him?
It no longer matters, monsieur.
Save your prayers, Lafayette. There is no God to help him.
Come on. Let's go.
I want to pause for a moment here. I like this part because it's an interesting display of the privileges of being part of the Order. The question is, if one of the knights gave the police officer their water, would he have been saved? Did this man die just because tradition states that no one other than the knights can drink the black water? Or are there physical differences between those of the Order and regular civilians? Would his body reject the water and be destroyed by it? Or do the knights just hate poor people? Moving on, Galahad improvises with the thermite rifle in order to clear some obstructions in their path while also fighting more rebel forces until they hit a standstill. Police are no longer advancing and there are no rebels in sight. But instead, something much worse. Half-breeds. They have swarmed the building. Galahad uses the air support he had contacted earlier for assistance. After the weaponized blimp releases some sort of sonar payload device that disperses the lichens and gives all the poor people in a 12-mile radius, IBS, they press forward.
Go! Find out where these bloody things are coming from. I'll cover the rear.
Monsieur, you will need this. Be careful, my friends.
Always, Marquis.
Galahad and Izzy make their way through the dark underground tunnels, fighting rebels until they find themselves at the doors of the hospital. But before entering, they see Percival talking to the same hooded figure that Galahad had seen him speaking with on the 12th, 3 days earlier. Entering the London hospital, Galahad and Izzy find an abandoned building littered with the mutilated bodies of what once were patients. It doesn't take long to find out that there are actually rebels still inhabiting the hospital. Izzy, while going for the door to the basement, bravely announces to Galahad that one of them should go into the basement, before swiftly turning around and going the other way.
Gray, one of us should search the basement.
Agreed. I'll head downstairs.
All right, I'll go this way. Get on the comm if you find anything.
It's not long before the power goes out and the comms drop as well, leaving Galahad alone down there with no one but his friends.
The effects of soy has caused permanent damage to the human population that cannot be reversed, and the influence of soy products on humanity will lead to a totalitarian femboy empire.
The silence is then broken up by the sound of flesh being torn from bone. And now I'm going to let the following scene play out because it's my favorite in the whole game, and I think it's better experienced that way. But I am going to cut and trim to shorten some of the dead time.
We have a problem. Damn it.
After a narrow escape, Galahad finds Izzy and informs her that he found a mark, or an elder, which explains why this one was much stronger and larger than the Lycans we've seen so far. As Galahad is removing the barricade from the door, Izzy warns Galahad that the elder is behind him.
Find something to pry it open. I'll clear the debris on this side.
All right. Gray!
Going out with a whimper, Galahad slays the elder and immediately runs to Izzy's aid, giving her some of her flask and then taking her to a bed to recover. But on the way, she begins to tell Galahad that she can't endure much longer in this life and that they should both leave the order together.
We deserve better. You and I, together.
As she is saying this, the same woman that had spotted him earlier is seen running past holding a bundle of documents, and just before passing out, Izzy tells Galahad that there is a room he needs to go and investigate. Laying her down to recover, he then proceeds his investigation, in which he discovers a photo that includes Lord Hastings with a red circle around his head, a map with red threads strewn across it, shipping manifests for the Agamemnon, high-grade communications equipment, some sort of tortured victim, unopened shipping crates from the United India Company, and United India Company uniforms. Having gathered this evidence, Galahad returns to Izzy, who now, thanks to the water from her flask, is now able to stand on her own 2 feet. They then begin their return to Lafayette and Percival. With the group reunited and new evidence that appears to be a rebel plan on attacking Lord Hastings under the guise of being security for the Agamemnon, they rush to intercept the threat, without bringing this information to the rest of the council and without communicating to the Agamemnon, due to the nature of the threat possibly being from the United India Company itself, and because there's simply not enough time to await a meeting with the council. The only issue is that the Agamemnon is already airborne. Cut to our 4 protagonists rappelling down from the Sentinel 5, down the side of the Agamemnon and into the inner walls of the vessel. As always, our group then splits off into 2, Percival and Izzy in one, responsible for reconnaissance, and Galahad and Lafayette in the other, responsible for taking control of the cockpit. Just before the 2 groups split off, Galahad finally approaches Percival about the hooded stranger he has been speaking with.
Then let's move out. Sebastian, I must ask you, who's the old man you were talking to on Mayfair and Whitechapel?
The old man. It's a long story. One that I will share with you when the time is right. There's still much that I have to find out for myself.
I hope you know what you are doing. It seems that the council grows wary of your defiance.
The Order is not what it once was, Grayson.
Yes, you've said that much before.
Patience, old friend. All in due time.
As they make their way to the cockpit, Percival informs them that the security detail on board is using deadly force and to retaliate if necessary.
Maybe.
This honestly reminds me of that scene in MacGruber where he just keeps ripping people's throats out.
Throat lozenges? You're gonna want to take the whole box. Awesome! Got another throat rip in. Cool.
Shortly thereafter, Galahad silently takes out the first guard, who is definitely in on the assassination, and we get another brilliant display of tactical expertise from Galahad and Lafayette when they enter the cockpit, throwing in a smoke grenade. I guess they didn't come equipped with any flash grenades, and even then, after they throw it, they wait till they are already cognizant enough to shoot at the door they are breaching, which once again begs the question, would they not have been better off just doing a standard maneuver to enter the room if they didn't have the proper equipment? I mean, look at this guy. Does this look like a guy who is in any way disoriented? All they did with that grenade was make some of them cough a bit and then turn their attention to the door. The only reason that they didn't get shot here was because that guy was a bad shot. Anyway, they seize the cockpit and Lafayette stays at the helm, while Galahad moves on to get rid of more conspirators of the assassination and definitely not just the standard security detail for the United India Company. To the surprise of everyone, Sir Lucan is present with Lord Hastings, and though it might benefit them to tell them, they cannot risk alerting the assassins of their presence. So Galahad takes the high ground and begins inspecting the guards for improper uniforms like the ones they found at the London hospital. After inspecting everyone in the room and establishing the threat, he then fires his first shot and alerts Lucan and Hastings of the rebel threat.
Lucan! Rebels! Get Hastings out now!
Get him out of here! Hastings got away. I need backup. Everyone move to plan B.
Percival, the mark is down.
Lucan then quickly escorts Hastings out of the ballroom and a firefight ensues. But apparently everyone else was on their court-mandated tea break because it ends up being a 1v50 with all of the real security nowhere to be found. Galahad once again sees the same woman he had seen in Whitechapel earlier and begins his pursuit, but quickly loses her and makes his way back to Percival at the escape pods.
Is this what you would call reasonable?
We could not have foreseen these circumstances, Alistair.
Your mission to Whitechapel was to remain covert. I have received word of numerous casualties and reports of destruction to the London hospital. And now this!
I intend to stand by my word. I alone will assume responsibility for all the consequences that may befall us.
Sebastian, you do understand. There is little I can do to protect you from the wrath of the Lord Chancellor or of the Order.
Your father will see reason. Right now, our concern should be finding the other device before it detonates.
Good night, your assistants. We must all hurry off the ship before things get worse.
Sir Lucan will escort you and see to the evacuation. We must resume our pursuit.
Surely this is a situation for all hands. You do not intend to stay aboard?
We will join you as soon as we can.
Izzy, see to these people, then head to the cockpit.
No, I'm coming with you.
Izzy, you need to find Lafayette and get off this ship. Your brother charged me to bring you back safely. Do this
for me.
We need weapons. There's a guard station nearby. We can avail ourselves of the company's arms.
After Percival has finished getting scolded and everyone has safely been evacuated, Galahad and Percival take their stock of the armory on board and continue on with their mission. After finding out the weakness of the rebels is removing their hats, Galahad starts to go to town. That is, until he runs into a man with a metal hat that envelops his head. No worries though, Galahad uses his superior tactic... His superior tactic... superior tactics to defeat this dude cosplaying as a knight.
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
It's alright, I know.
Finally, Galahad and Percival converge on the last rebel on board.
Galahad! Hold your fire!
There's no time, Percival! We have to stop him!
Trust me, Grayson. Listen to me, lad. Stand down.
You have no idea who you're dealing with. We are not the enemy!
Then prove it! Stop this madness.
No. Not as long as the company is allowed to carry on unobstructed.
They won't. We'll see to it.
It's too late.
Sebastian?
Friend. You don't have to do this.
Great, fully possible. Come in, possible. Galahad, acknowledge. Gray, Sebastian. Come in. Please.
Surrounded by the remnants of the Agamemnon, now engulfed in fire, Galahad sees his worst fears come to fruition. Sir Percival is dead. The 17th of October. With Sir Percival dead, we get a little more insight on his life and the history of this world, such as how Percival was actually alive for the rise of the half-breeds, insinuating that they haven't always been around, or at the very least, were in hiding at one point before being discovered.
He saw entire kingdoms perish, and others equally transitory take their place. He saw the rise of the half-breeds, and was relentless in their pursuit. To all these things he bore witness, because he was blessed by this. The Grail, the black water that courses through our veins. The bond that unites this order. The elixir which heals all wounds and extends the life of natural men. Yet it cannot ensure immortality.
And with the death of one knight comes the birth of another. Lafayette is sworn into the order and takes on the moniker of Sir Percival. Despite the recency of Sir Percival's death, the Lord Chancellor does not hesitate to besmirch his name and the actions which were ultimately the reason for his death, which, as a surprise to no one, angers Sir Galahad.
It is only by the mercy of Providence that an even greater disaster was avoided. All this while not a single rebel was taken into custody. On the contrary, by their rogue actions, the knights in question may have done the enemy a great service.
The Lord Chancellor perhaps speaks too harshly. He would do well to remember that Sir Percival's force did uncover evidence of a rebel effort against the...
Circumstantial evidence. Mere supposition, all of which resulted in a deplorable calamity. I will hear no more of the matter.
With respect, Lord Chancellor.
Sit down, Sir Galahad!
With respect! I too have lost a friend. More than a friend. A brother. You do great wrong to sully his name in such a manner.
You dance on the very edge of insubordination, Sir Knight.
I am apprehensive of my responsibility in this affair. Yet if the same circumstances should present themselves, I would do exactly as I have done. As Mallory wished.
A large explosion is heard, interrupting the heated discussion between Sir Galahad and the Lord Chancellor. The guard quickly enters the council room to inform everyone that Lord Hastings has been attacked on the nearby bridge. As the Knights of the Round Table begin to make their way to Hastings, they quickly find that they are going to have to fight their way there, being welcomed to a well-armed militia and surrounding mortar fire. Regardless of the ensuing chaos, they quickly make their way to Hastings' carriage and rescue him. But as Sir Lucan orders them to fall back to the palace, Galahad has other plans. Galahad sees the same rebel woman he has seen time and time again. He drops the carriage, creating a barrier between him and the other knights, and presses on to pursue and exterminate the rebel threat himself and catch up to the woman to finally put an end to all of this. I swear, how many times am I going to see this British man? Through the comms, we can hear that Galahad is being told that the rebels are in retreat and that the royal army is en route. But Galahad is blinded by revenge and has a bloodlust for the poor limey bastards, and no amount of orders to fall back would overpower his primal desire to kill British people, albeit with the coolest weapon in the whole game.
Fuck the army. This is my fight.
Sir Galahad, the Knight Commander has requested that you abandon pursuit.
After exterminating the rebel threat, he then begins to advance and interrogate the sole survivor of his onslaught with only one question.
Where's the Indian woman? Where is she? Where is she? Where? Tell me! Tell me! Whitechapel. Brothel.
After getting his answer, he returns to the bar that he and Lafayette had visited previously and makes himself welcome.
Wait. Leonard! A drink! A drink, goddamn you! Absinthe!
After sitting and having a drink, he finds himself in a standoff with the woman he's been searching for, but the fun is quickly interrupted by another woman, Lakshmi, who claims she is the one that Galahad needs to speak with.
I don't respond well to threats.
Then you're of no use to me.
So much animosity. You look like you can use some of this, Knight.
The Blackwater. But how did you get...
Shall we call this a temporary truce? Apna hatare niche karo. Devi, if it keeps you at ease, you can keep your gun pointed. But I am the one you seek, not her. We have much to discuss. Let us find a more private setting.
So that's why he was looking for her.
हमें अकेले छोड़ दो. हम अकेले बात करेंगे. ब्लैको का काम के लिए जाओ.
आपका हुक्म रानी.
Now that they have some privacy, she begins to explain to Galahad that the people he works for are corrupt and are bought out by the United India Company, who is the real enemy. She claims that the United India Company has secrets that even the Order doesn't know about, and that she can show him evidence at the United India Company docks. Galahad agrees, but only on the condition that none of the company guards will be harmed.
Hanging up your collars so soon?
The Order cannot be seen as having any part of this.
Gray, what games are you playing? This cannot be.
The 18th of October. As Galahad and Lakshmi are making their way through an underground tunnel, she asks Galahad what he knows of purebloods, and he tells her all that he knows, that they were ancestors to the Half-Bloods and have gone extinct. She rebuttals, claiming that they are still very much alive, and has even fought them before. And of course, Galahad hits her with the pics or it didn't happen. But before she can provide pics, they are met with a stealth section, which we have seen as Galahad's bread and butter, and they immediately get discovered.
Who's there?
He starts telling a horrible lie about how he somehow got lost and somehow found his way, even though there's no way that he could have done that with the way he came in.
This is private property.
Oh, I feared as much. I was lost in the tunnels.
Who the devil are you?
Another lost traveler in this infernal city, it appears. If you don't mind me asking, where am I?
Blackwall Yard. United India Docks.
Definitely not where I thought.
And as he's doing this, Lakshmi comes up from behind him and just hits him in the head with a 2x4.
Oh, a trifle easier to climb up to the streets, wouldn't you say?
Back you go.
Don't worry. He's only resting.
There's no way she didn't kill him. She literally hit him over the head with that solid piece of wood.
Though his head might pain him for some time after.
That man died from blunt force trauma, which, may I remind you, was Galahad's only condition. But he doesn't seem to mind too much, so they keep pressing forward. And they quietly make their way over to a gate, and they're spotted by a sniper.
Sniper!
So Galahad turns around because he clearly stated that he didn't want to kill any innocent people. I said he turned around. Why isn't he turning around? This is clearly in breach of his conditions. Galahad, don't you think these people are potentially innocent? I'm only more convinced that Galahad enjoys killing poor British people. I mean, what is the end game if all of this is a bust? Galahad's just going to report back to the council? Oh, yes. I conducted a very thorough investigation on the United India Company, where I killed the entire security staff and found that the rebel group lied to me. Oh, you mean to tell me that you wreaked catastrophic havoc on an unsuspecting security force that we are allied with, and in the process found nothing? I found out they're weaker than me. So he proceeds to light a bunch of people on fire as they were ready to clock out and head over to ye old Applebee's, and then proceeds to incapacitate the sniper. Not this guy again. Galahad then struggles to make his way to safety, but luckily for him, he is saved by some bulletproof wooden planks. Finally escaping after numerous firefights, the three are reunited, and for some reason, Lord Hastings is visiting the United India Company as well. Lakshmi gets Galahad's attention and tells him that the cargo being loaded onto the ships cannot be allowed to leave. As she is saying this, Lord Hastings can be seen being escorted through the gates to the exact area she's referring to. As they're about to board the ship, Lakshmi tells the other girl to stay behind.
You imagine conspiracies when none exist.
Look at the cargo night and talk to me of fantasies.
Rani, क्या आपको उस पे विश्वास है?
वे ये ना कहते हैं कि समझने की बात होगी, तो वो जरूर सुनेगा.
अगर उसने नहीं बात मानी तो?
Then he shall be dealt with.
On their way up, Lakshmi notices that there are a lot of guards on board and that they should remain as stealthy as possible. Here we go again.
Hurry.
Morton, the intruders are that Hastings guard detail!
The intruders are here! Get his lordship to safety!
Two things here. One, shouldn't the guards have already been on high alert? The mass amount of guards that Galahad was fighting. Don't you think that one of them would have communicated over saying, hey, we've got 2 intruders killing all of us? And even if comms were down or they didn't communicate it, do you expect us to believe that this entire half of the shipyard just didn't hear the massive firefight going on across the street? And 2, the comedic timing of this almost seems on purpose. Every single time that Galahad is required to use stealth or approach something in a non-lethal manner, it goes horribly wrong. Not only does it go horribly wrong, it goes immediately wrong. He's either immediately discovered or brutally murders a potentially innocent man. I mean, do they not teach the Knights of the Round Table how to approach covert missions? I mean, the guy takes off his uniform, sure, but his face is still clearly visible, so anyone could just ID him, and it's not like he's nobody. He's a very public figure. It's the equivalent of Batman wanting to do a mission not as Batman. So instead he just takes off his entire costume. But when people see him, they go, oh, yeah, I recognize that guy. That's Robert Pattinson. And not to mention, he's also using very recognizable gear from the Order. Between his guns, his knife, and his very visible radio that only they use. So even more to my original point, not only has Batman removed his costume and you see Robert Pattinson fighting crime, but now he's fighting crime with a batarang. As far as the non-lethal stuff goes, that honestly seems pretty on par for a Knight of the Round Table. I'm pretty sure non-lethal to them just means don't kill them with the hatred you have in your heart. Just kill them out of necessity, and because they aren't British, or at the very least, because they are poor, God save the Queen. After a series of firefights, the two get closer to what they came here for, but not before getting to see Galahad's expert detective skills at work.
Quite an array of weapons.
Nothing strange about it. The company exports munitions around the globe.
It doesn't strike you as odd that the dock guards are armed to the teeth with the latest weaponry?
Enough of your speculations. Let's find what you brought me here for, shall we?
Oh, this guy has to be the worst detective. I mean, he is literally on an investigation, and she brings up an extremely valid point, and he's immediately dismissive. Cease with your witchy ways, woman. I will not be swayed or distracted by the ramblings of a mad fanatic. No, I mean, seriously, don't you think it's weird? They're a transport company with a security detail that has access to the same weapons as the Order. Oi, show me the box! I promise I like this game.
This must be what we're looking for. Help me get this one down. Crowbar.
Look, Hard Knight. See the evil we both fight against.
Vampires. It can't be. How?
The half-breeds are consolidating their power. With the protection of the Lycans in your land, Hastings and his vampire ilk are spreading disease throughout your
Lord Hastings, he can't be one of them.
Many have witnessed in Whitechapel your noble lord roaming the streets late at night, preying on downtrodden women.
The Ripper gangs.
That is what you call them. How do you think the murderer still continues to evade Commissioner Doyle's dragnet? Whitechapel has become the Kindred's feeding ground.
How many more of these are there?
Enough to affect a city.
The two then begin to set fire to the warehouse, and as they do, another firefight breaks out, which quickly ends. And as they try to push forward, a pack of Lycans shows up.
I'll deal with this one.
It's locked!
Lycan!
Galahad then fights 3 Lycans at once, while Lakshmi disappears for no apparent reason other than to wait at a door. After killing 2 of the Lycans by herself, she calls you over, and as they're waiting for the door to get unlocked, they have a moment of silence, which is quickly interrupted by the sound of trap screams from their burning coffins.
Ronnie, are you in there?
Devi! I'm not glad to hear your voice.
Ronnie, are you hurt?
No, not yet, but hurry, break down the door.
At once, Ronnie.
Galahad puts a Lycan in a headlock, because of course he does, and then proceeds to headshot it with a Smith & Wesson 500 and dips.
I never thought to see you again, daughter. How did you find us?
There's no time. The company's forces are gathering at the shipyard.
We must flee. Night did not tempt fate. Our work here is done.
Lakshmi offers Galahad to help her bring a stop to this whole ordeal and bring down the United India Company. But Galahad persists that he needs to bring it to the council, because he's a knight and he needs to do it the proper way. So he immediately makes his way back to the council to reveal everything that he has learned, but he gets intercepted by Izzy, who starts yapping.
Gray, what in the world is going on?
Not now, Izzy.
Don't walk away from me. I saw you at Whitechapel.
What? You followed me?
I was worried about you. You fled like a madman after the battle on the bridge.
You know nothing. Less than nothing.
Is this some kind of clandestine infiltration? Is that what you're up to?
This isn't the time.
Gray, what's happened to you? Ever since Mallory was killed, I look at you and...
What? What do you see?
I don't know. A stranger. Someone I'm not sure I can trust anymore. Whatever it is, for God's sake, tell me.
Not this time, Izzy. And you do well to stay clear of me. For your own good.
You! Find General Lafayette and summon him to the library.
Galahad then tells the Lord Chancellor and Sir Lucan what he knows, and the way that the Lord Chancellor always responds makes me laugh.
Allegation is monstrous! I refuse to believe it.
He just tells him, nah, I don't buy it, and then proceeds to turn around and walk away. No counter-argument, old as hell, and refusing to listen. A true politician.
All the years I've known your father, never have I seen him so obstinate.
Your allegations strike at the very heart of the Empire.
All he need do is journey to Blackwall Yard.
For what evidence? The destruction was total. A clear case of arson, according to Commissioner Doyle. Apparently, a small group of rebels was seen on the docks. It was all rather... what is the word the Commissioner is so fond of? Oh yes, elementary.
Hold on. Was that a fucking Sherlock Holmes reference? Sorry, I have to interrupt that. Did he talk to the Sherlock Holmes? And did the Sherlock Holmes chop this up to just be arson? Even though there would have been tons of dead bodies from gunfire. Not to mention the naked bodies of the Lycans that shouldn't be there, and the burnt remains and the ashes of the cargo. So either the United India Company cleaned up all the evidence really well and really quick, which is unlikely, or this Sherlock Holmes is being paid off, or 3, he is literally the worst detective ever. What is with most of the lawmen in this game not asking any questions? I don't understand. So in short, Galahad convinces Sir Lucan to help him infiltrate the United India Company at night and reveal their entire operation by discovering evidence of what he claims. Later that very same night, Sir Lucan and Galahad make their way through a back entrance to the compound and grab a couple of Van Helsing crossbows.
Crossbow. Brings back memories. Ancient ones at that.
Thought it best we stay silent on this mission. Let's get going.
They make their way to the rooftop and... Why is that even in the game? They make their way to the rooftop and shoot an anchor, and Galahad rappels down to the courtyard with Lucan keeping watch. Oh no, another stealth section. You know what that means.
Grayson, I think it unwise to eliminate company guards until we have proof.
There is no time, Alistair. You have to trust me. This is the only way.
I like how even Lucan is like, yo, I did not sign up for this.
Okay, you know what? Moving too fast. Bottom line, are you in or are you out?
What are you talking? In or out of what?
No time for questions, just action. In or out.
Okay, well, then I'm out.
I'm sorry, Jet. Actually, you're already in.
Then why would you ask me?
All right, Galahad. All you have to do is quietly make your way through. I love that the guards either incoherently yell and then execute you, or they hit you with an "Oi, you!"
Oi, you!
and then execute you. There's no attempt at really saying anything. So I don't know. Maybe it isn't just Galahad who has this execute first, ask questions never mentality. Finally, Galahad and Lucan make it to the house, and Galahad takes the west wing while Lucan takes the east. All right, Galahad, so far so good. Just keep up the good work with the stealth. I have no words. Eventually, Lakshmi shows up and tells Galahad that she brought a couple others with her, and they have already cleared out the rest of the courtyard moving forward. As you begin to enter the building, you were discovered, and the guard immediately alerts the others of your presence. Hey, this is the furthest Galahad has gotten with a stealth section, so honestly, I'm actually kind of proud of him in this moment. To his credit, it's not even his fault. That was on Lakshmi. And we're back to familiar territory. Galahad and friends make their way through the building, killing guard after guard until they run into Lucan.
Lucan, hold your fire! This is Lakshmi Bai, the leader of the rebellion.
She is your confederate. Have you taken leave of your senses, man?
I might ask the same question.
If I didn't know you any better, I'd think you'd led me into a rebel ambush.
As I might fear an arrest.
We do not have time for this. We needed help, and she is the only one I could turn to.
This is madness. You're putting the very core of our order in jeopardy.
Alistair, you have to trust me. You asked that we find proof. She was with me in Blackwall. She witnessed what I found there.
You mean to tell me that she helped you destroy the United India Company docks? My father was right. That was an act of pure terrorism. She used you.
She brought this conspiracy to my attention, and if we're to see it through, her help is invaluable.
And what if you're wrong?
Then she and I will answer for our actions. And suffer the consequences.
As Mallory did. I hope you're right, Gray. I wouldn't want to see you on the wrong side of this mess.
Neither would I, brother.
After an unlikely alliance, they continue to make their way through and kill more guards until they find themselves in the archives room.
Search the archives. Look for manifests, bills of lading, requisition orders. Anything that might link the company to the half-breed shipments.
What the hell is that? I don't think I'm allowed to see that, let alone show it. I don't know about all that. So you Last of Us all over the place until Lakshmi finds a big old book of evidence. I mean, it has to be literally the largest book in the archive. It's laughable. But not too funny because that one guy is missing, and before we get to know him, Lakshmi and Galahad walk in on Lord Hastings vamped out, getting some B with his D out.
The Whitechapel killings. The half-breed scourge. United India. All you.
Jacob Van Neck. Or as the Fleet Street pamphleteers have so fondly named me, Jack the Ripper.
At your service.
In a surprising twist, Lucan is the traitor of the Order who is working directly with Lord Hastings, or Jack the Ripper, and has brought Galahad here to kill him and the rebel leader. But despite having every advantage to do just that, they both botch it and try to take the two of them 2v2, and it immediately goes wrong for them, leading to Galahad chasing after Lucan through the United India compound, while Lakshmi gets away.
Quite fortuitous, wouldn't you say, Sir Galahad? The rebel leader captured, and a traitor revealed, all in one fell swoop. The traitor being you, regrettably.
Run!
We swore an oath.
In the name of the law, open this door.
Galahad, stay where you are.
Wait, I can explain.
I said, don't move.
You arrive in good time.
We received a report of a disturbance.
Yes, Sir Galahad stormed in here with a filthy band of rebels intent on killing me.
It's a lie.
Oh, see the result of that little incursion. Sir Galahad's accomplice was a woman. The leader of the rebellion, in fact. She eluded our grasp.
We knights will see to the capture of the rebel leader.
Izzy, listen to me. You're making a grave mistake.
Sir Percival, take this intruder into custody.
I'm truly sorry this office must fall upon you, Marquis.
No more than I am, monsieur.
Get him out of my sight.
I thank you, Lady Igraine. Your intervention was truly fortuitous.
You may expect to be summoned before the courts. Your testimony will be required.
I am always at the service of Her Majesty's knights.
The 20th of October. Much like true high-ranking officers, there is no loyalty or allegiance, and they all immediately throw Galahad under the bus.
We found Lord Hastings wounded by the prisoner's hand.
He must stand condemned by his own actions.
Honored knights, how do you find for the prisoner?
Guilty.
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 Guilty. Guilty? The only one that's guilty here is you, for thinking that you can get screen time. Nameless Knight, go back to off the screen and talk like the rest of them.
Guilty.
Man, they really want you to hate her. Which sucks, because I actually like her character up until she starts acting like she doesn't know Galahad is the ham of the chopped salad.
Guilty.
The sentence is death.
The 20th of November. A full month has passed with Galahad being taken as a prisoner, and we finally circled back around to the events at the beginning of the game, concluding with Galahad taking a dive off the bridge in his escape from his unjust capture.
No one may escape the penalty.
You forget, Lord Chancellor. I'm as good as dead already.
Galahad awakens to Nikola Tesla and the hooded man pulling him from the water and into a small boat. They then transfer him to a safe house where he stays in recovery while going in and out of consciousness. To help him heal, Tesla gives Galahad some black water from the Grail as well. The 22nd of November. Despite the pleas of Tesla, the hooded man is seen leaving both of them, but reassures Nikola Tesla that if Galahad does in fact survive, that he will call upon him. The 26th of November. Tallahassee shows up and waits for Galahad to wake up.
You were right to bring me here, Nicola.
There's not much more I can do. All of London is looking for him.
So they are. We will take care of him. Time will tell if he will make it through.
The 30th of November. Nikola Tesla and Tallahassee argue about him going back, but he insists that he needs to, or else the Order will begin to suspect that he is involved with the both of them. The 2nd of December. It's Christmas time, boys and girls, and Galahad finally woke up with a big old beard and a big red sack. Eager to give the limey blokes what's coming to them, he quickly changes into his new uniform, now that he is no longer a knight, and heads out with Lakshmi. During which we are given a bit more lore about how Lakshmi got her flask, which she claims she got it from a knight of the Round Table. Sir Boris or Sir Vor, I don't know, but he was a knight that hadn't been seen since the search for the Grail, and it seems like he passed his flask down to her when he died. Not sure the context, though, because if he was searching for the Grail and they didn't have it yet, then why did he have a special flask for water for the Grail? Anyway, cut to Narnia and two dudes from Pirates of the Caribbean entering Galahad's hideout. They do a close shot of her being really angry and unlikable, and I don't know. It seems like the angrier she is getting, the closer her eyebrows are growing. Cut back to Galahad and Lakshmi. They're back at the bar and are planning their next steps. And by planning, I mean Galahad decides to go back to the palace to save Tesla and tells Lakshmi to get away while she can.
Alistair knows you. He'll expect you to come.
I know.
As he is leaving the bar, he runs into Lafayette, or Sir Percival.
A knight you are not, monsieur. But are you a turncoat or a patriot?
What would you have me be, Marquis?
I believe you have reason for what you do. Two revolutions have taught Lafayette that there are dangers on both sides.
I will not forget this, Marquis.
See that you do not, monsieur. Should you threaten the cause of liberty, you can count on Lafayette to be your sworn enemy. Adieu, monsieur. Until we meet again.
That we will, my friend.
The 3rd of December. Galahad is preparing to storm the palace, but is stopped by Lakshmi's guard/daughter person, who he then apologizes to, and she gives him a gun and then tells him not to get himself killed as her queen has taken a liking to him. Which I've got to say, was Homeboy just about to storm the gates with nothing but a pistol, his knife, and a pair of fisticuffs? Actually, yeah, that sounds exactly like Sir Galahad. I don't think I've seen this man have a solid plan yet. Luckily for him, the palace guard left Galahad an entire arsenal of various weapons and ammunition right outside the main room where they would set up their defenses. Tesla, who had made contact with you on the radio earlier, can be heard speaking with Sir Lucan, who isn't even attempting to hide that he's evil anymore.
Nicola. Just the man I wanted to see.
Oh, how may I help you, Sir Lucan?
Come with me. We have much to discuss.
Yes, sir.
So Galahad, hearing that they're about to have a grand old tea time and not wanting to miss a bit of the action, quickly rushes to call dibs on his seat in his favorite teacup, the one with Steve Rogers fighting Mustache Man. But it seems like tea time went bad, considering Tesla has been greatly wounded while wielding a sick-ass weapon that we haven't seen or gotten to use yet.
Nicola, what happened?
Lady Lakshmi was right. He knew.
I'll get you out of here. Come on.
He's still in there. It's too late. There's nothing we can do.
There's still something I must do.
Oh man, I can't wait to use this bad boy.
Alistair!
I knew you would return, brother.
Come out of the shadows, damn you!
You and I, we are not that different. I do what I must to protect my kind. We fight only for our right to live.
That's a lie!
One day, perhaps, you will understand.
Once again, I feel the weight of this needs to speak for itself, so I'm just going to let this play out. Oh, so we're not actually going to get to use it.
Forgive me, Grayson. This is not the outcome I sought.
So with Sir Lucan mortally wounded, the two finally get a chance to share words.
I've lived too long to not know this day would come.
Why, Alistair? You have fought us outside all these years.
I've seen things I am condemned to remember. Civilizations born and destroyed by humanity's incessant greed. The pride of men slaughtering each other in the name of their so-called God.
We will atone for our sins in time. But how can you justify the atrocities your kind have committed?
My kind are no more evil than yours.
What of your sister? Your father? Was it all a lie?
Izzy, my father. I loved them as my own blood. But they cannot begin to know the curse I have lived with.
My son.
Father, forgive me.
It is I who needs your forgiveness. I never meant this life for you.
You knew.
I've always known. I rescued him from the massacre of his family. Your father died by my sword. But a child? You didn't deserve such a fate. How could I have taken the life of an innocent?
Confess this to the Council, Lord Chancellor. It is the only way to make amends for the havoc that has been unleashed.
I cannot! The revelation would shake our order to its very foundations.
So I am to be sacrificed. How many more must die to ensure an eternal silence?
He is my son. I cannot be the one to end his life. Isabeau and the Council must never discover the truth, lest all you hold dear perish.
Do not ask this of me.
Henceforth, you shall have fellowship with no knights. The Order must remain united. You are no longer one of its heralds. Finish what you have begun, and finish! Men were never meant to live this life.
There shall come a day when all our burdens will end, brother. Maybe then we shall know true peace.
And on an extremely heavy note, wrapping up the first and unfortunately last major chapter of this story, concludes The Order 1886. Well, of course we get an Avengers post-credit scene teasing the next movie that'll probably never happen.
We mustn't delay. Sir Galahad, can you hear me? Sir Galahad.
Be at ease, Nicola. All is fine.
So you say, my friend. The Council has declared martial law throughout the city. There is no telling when the authorities will decide to mount offensive. Now is not the time for heroics. I would advise we follow Lady Lakshmi's lead and leave the city.
I'll join you shortly. And don't you know, I'm Galahad, no more.
So now that we're all caught up, let me just start by saying that I think that the story was really well thought out, and it's clear that they were setting up for a larger, much more fleshed out story. Along with that, the characters are really well written with understandable motives and great character development. All while taking place in a 1800s Knights of the Round Table meets steampunk Van Helsing. My only gripe with the world building that they did is that I want more. There are several things throughout the story that were set up to be answered, but to be answered in the sequel. Because of that, now we're left with an incomplete story. and several questions unanswered, such as who was the mystery man that Percival kept talking to, and who ultimately saved Galahad's life? Is he one of the missing Knights of the Round Table that was briefly mentioned? What are his plans for Galahad now that he has survived and left the Order? Could all the knights that have gone missing over the years still be alive and be part of the Resistance? I want to know more about the Lycans and what exactly an Elder is. Is it a pure-blooded Lycan or just an extremely old one? What is their history? Not to mention the vampires who we barely see in cutscenes and never in gameplay. What exactly is a pureblood and what is the history there? And the game barely scratched the surface of the Jack the Ripper constable vampire conspiracy that took an extremely played out trope and made it part of something much larger and much more interesting. I would have loved to have missions where you play as other characters, like Lafayette in his pursuit to find the truth of whether Galahad is guilty or not. They could have done a whole prequel chapter where you play as a young Lord Chancellor on the mission where he ultimately finds Lucan and adopts him as his half-breed son, raising him up in the Order. The story had so much potential and groundwork laid out for more story and world building. I'm not sure why they decided to make the game as short as it is, but even so, they still did an amazing job with what they made, all leading up to a beautiful cinematic ending that leaves you feeling like there is so much more going on than we had originally anticipated. And there's so much work left to be done. It ends on a note that feels like the end of a season, not the end of a movie. With The Last of Us Part 1, the game was so well fleshed out and paced that by the end you felt the full gravity of the journey you had been on as Joel and Ellie. But by the end of this game you felt like you were mid-sprint and then crossed the finish line without even realizing it. I wouldn't say this game deserved more, I'd say it needed more. For how grand they set the stage, it needed a much longer story and also better gameplay mechanics. The combat feels fine until you need to maneuver out of the way of something. It's a cover shooter that responds in most part how you would expect, but there's no dodge or jump function to avoid enemies or to get somewhere faster. So when you're fighting someone and they run up on your position, you oftentimes kind of feel like you're glued to the ground. Kind of like in games where you have normal movement, but then you are moving through some sort of terrain that causes you to slow down, like forces you to walk. It's like that, but all the time. What's even weirder about this is that in parts it feels like Uncharted's combat, if Nathan Drake was covered in molasses and dragging around ankle weights looking for the edgy kid to stuff in a locker. Speaking of the edgy kid, The Last of Us. One of my favorite games of all time. I know, I keep talking about it. Last video I made was about it, but bear with me. As a point of reference, The Order came out in 2015. The Last of Us Part 1 came out in 2013. I think that The Order would have greatly benefited from just modeling their combat style more off of The Last of Us versus this lazy man's Gears of War / Uncharted combat with quick time events. I cannot stress how dumb it is that you can't dodge without a quick time event. Basically, the combat should be revamped. Honestly, I think a perfect combination would be The Last of Us 2 and the Callisto Protocol. Between the gunplay segments and the stealth segments from The Last of Us and the much more fast-paced range / melee combat that you have with the Lycans could very easily mirror the Callisto Protocol.
You're just taking a turn. No! Holy shit. Riveting gameplay. I can't fucking believe this. This is Game of the Year shit, dude.
I really think this game should lean into the Fountain of Youth thing more and make the knights even more superhuman, allowing for you to go into a near immortal state for a time after drinking from your flask, and allowing for a sort of berserk mode like in God of War where you don't take as much damage and you deal a lot more. It'd also be sick to have more environmental interaction, where you can find or create and use improvised weapons like Izzy and Galahad do in their fight against the Elder when they use the axe. All that being said, I think a major change they need to make is allowing the player to choose how they want to approach combat. Maybe not for every mission, but it'd be nice to have the option to choose to either sneak around and take people out quietly, or go hyper-aggressive like it's $2 margarita night at Applebee's and you're 10 deep and the bar's cutting you off. Also, this feels super obvious, but the stealth should have a non-lethal option. It has always bothered the hell out of me that Galahad always talks about trying to keep damage at a minimum when it comes to potentially innocent parties, but then proceeds to cut him open like he's carving a pumpkin. That being said, don't get me wrong, they didn't get everything wrong about the combat. A lot of the guns feel good. The melee combat is really fun and impactful, and they have a lot of fun ideas like how the enemies will sometimes comment on what kind of weapon you're using, or how Galahad uses an empty gun to take someone hostage. Granted, they didn't put that in the actual combat, but it'd be cool if they did. But The best thing they did with their combat was Black Sight, which is literally just Deadeye from Red Dead Redemption. It allows you to go into a bullet time and shoot several targets in quick succession. This is a feature that I didn't use a lot when I played the game the first time, but having gone back to it, I found myself actively trying to use it more, because not only is it a lot of fun, but it also just makes the game way easier to manage when they throw a lot of enemies at you. I do wish that they implemented more of these unique features into the gameplay and your equipment, which leads me to my next topic. If by some miracle they ever remake this game, I really hope that this is what they focus on. They spent so much time fine crafting this world and these cool looking weapons, but
let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
The special weapons and items are pretty limited. You got the fart gun, which just stuns people, the rail gun, the thermite rifle, the Ratchet and Clank gun he uses on the top of the bus, which you only use for one scene, and the gun that Tesla uses, which I'm pretty sure is the same gun from the Avengers, and you don't even get to use that gun. Outside of that, all the guns are just variations of real guns. I think it would be awesome to be able to go to Nikola Tesla and have him craft unique steampunk-esque modifications to your weapons and armor that allow for improvements to stats or change the look of the guns, but also can add secondary fires or damage types like electricity, sound, fire, air. All things that they use throughout the story, but not in actual gameplay. Stat modifications could be made using either the Fountain of Youth or offerings to some sort of holy relic. And these offerings could be exchanged for new weapons from the Order or some sort of holy armory. You could get things like silver knuckles with holy engravings, or even a... These stat modifications could be either abilities or improving health / melee damage, bullet time length, or your berserk mode. Weapons and armor could be inspired by legends, history, holy relics, along with steampunk accessories. Down the road, you could even include Thomas Edison, who they mentioned briefly, as an alternate armor and have him have an alternate set of weapons and equipment that differs from Nikola Tesla's. The stuff you get from Thomas Edison could be more powerful, but have some sort of negative drawback. Or the stuff you get from Nikola Tesla are based on items you find in the game that he'll turn into upgrades, whereas Thomas Edison, you just straight out have to buy items, because we all know how much Thomas Edison loved his money. With the inclusion of vampires, they could even do something like The Witcher and have different weapons based on what you're fighting. Like how Geralt has a steel sword for humans and a silver sword for monsters, and you change in between them while fighting. You could have weapons, tonics, and upgrades, specifically for humans, werewolves, and vampires. The weapons could even transform to serve different purposes and kill different things. Like the weapons in Bloodborne, or like in the movie Constantine. Pardon me while I go full fanfic here, but I think it'd be sick if, in order to beat the big bad at the end of the game, you had to use Excalibur, King Arthur's sword, because it's the only weapon imbued with some kind of special material or blessing that is capable of killing something that powerful. They could even have you play a whole mission that takes place several hundreds of years in the past, explaining why the sword was in the stone, and have that be related in some way. Alright, stepping down from the fanfiction. I think this game would work great with a loadout armory system. Going back to my point about allowing the player to choose their approach to combat on some missions, if you know how you want to play the game, it'd be awesome to have access to what you want to use versus what you find or what you're given at the beginning of the chapter. For instance, late into the game, there's a huge stealth section, and up to this point, Galahad hasn't been great in that department. But this time, Sir Lucan has 2 crossbows ready for the both of them. These crossbows would have been immensely helpful throughout a lot of the stealth sections of this game. I mean, it is literally the only weapon in the game for stealth. Well, other than the knife and Henry Cavill's reloading biceps. Which, on that note, if this were to ever be made into a live action, Henry Cavill is my #1 choice for Galahad. Narnia can play Narnia, Dawn from Flash Gits can play Lafayette, Gary Oldman can play Lord Hastings, and Ian McKellen for the Lord Chancellor. Hold on. After I was done writing this, I decided to look up Sir Lucan to see if I think he looks like anybody, and I came across this, and I can't believe that some of my choices were right. I mean, the Henry Cavill one is pretty obvious, but I said Ian McKellen as a joke just because I thought it'd be funny. I can't believe people were fan casting him as this. That being said, some of these fan castings aren't actually bad, but I like some of my choices more. I do like Adam Driver as Nikola Tesla, but if they do that, I want Jonah Hill to be Thomas Edison. Lastly, I want to take a moment and talk about what this game does the best. The aesthetic. Right from the get-go, we are hit with this title screen that seems pretty normal, and then we hit start. And what is this? We're directly in the game. You know who else did this? God of War. Except instead of having to deal with this little shit, you have to deal with the British people. Which I'm not sure which one's worse, honestly. It's the British. I'm not even going to pretend that there's a contest. There we are, right out of the title screen and straight into the action. Main character being tortured. Boom, bang, he's free. Major character found a gun, no ammo, held hostage, lost the gun, he's got the gun, he's confused, he's dead. Major character escaping, trapped on a bridge, no way out. Major characters, cool line, fall into the ocean, woman screaming, title screen. Give it game of the year. Need I say more? Yes, I honestly did not say enough there. If you haven't played this, most of that probably sounded just like schizophrenic dialogue from a stranger at a Waffle House. Also, the whole game is in this widescreen ratio that further lends itself to this 1800s steampunk aesthetic. And though I don't know why they did it, if it was an aesthetic choice or to make the game look better than it actually does, but there's a lot of film grain, fuzziness, blurriness of things that aren't in the main focus. And normally I'd hate this, but for some reason with this game I actually think it looks great. Even though it does feel at times like Galahad needs to wash his eyes out with a pressure washer. Overall, the game just gives this Kingsman, Underworld, Van Helsing vibe. And even though that sounds awful, it somehow works. The whole game is shot in this forced widescreen perspective that really adds to the 1800s visual. And I can't really think of any other games that were doing stuff like that at the time. The first game that comes to mind is Ghost of Tsushima, and that came out in 2020. Just like playing Ghost of Tsushima with certain filters on, the widescreen ratio really lends itself to extremely awesome shots like the ending scene between Galahad and Lucan. This game also does a beautiful job with subtly interweaving lore and small dialogue between characters, giving us small portions of world building, such as Galahad talking about how they used to use crossbows a long time ago in the hunt, or when the Lord Chancellor reflects on his time as a knight in his youth, keeping in mind that they are borderline immortals, so the fact that he appears as old as he is means he is significantly older than he appears. Or the snippets we get about knights that disappeared, or the hooded man and his intentions. There are so many small conversations that happen in this game that have massive implications. And it's one of the things I love most about this game. It's what makes me wish that this game got a proper remake. I truly believe that where modern gaming is now, if they released a fleshed out version of this game, or even a sequel to this game, that it would do extremely well. People appreciate story games or games that are basically movies a lot more now than they did in the past. I think The Order was both too early and a product of its time. But if by some miracle this game does get a remake or a sequel, I'm calling it now. It's going to be called The Order 1887. Or The Order 18 however many years since they made the first one. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and check out some of my other videos where I talk about anime fan bases and their relationship with jars. Remnant 1, The Last of Us 2, but not a I hate this game or I love this game video. There's too many of those on the internet now. This one's actually about music that didn't make its way into the game that probably should have. Anyway, if you stuck around till the end, thank you. If you could like, comment, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, that would mean the world to me. Thanks. And have a bloody great day. That was a little more Australian, I think. Not very British on that one. I really can't believe that they want Ian McKellen as that role. I want to see him tower over Henry Cavill like he does Bilbo Baggins.
Do not take me for some conjurer of cheap tricks.